Do not do anything else until you've absolutely done your damnedest to get the most out of where you are currently and what you're doing currently. And by the way, when you go in and have that conversation, remember that what you ask for is the highest amount you can say out loud without actually bursting out laughing. And I'm happy to say that a young woman told me just a short while ago, a young woman who's here, that she took my advice and she got an absolutely whacking great pay raise that she would not have gotten otherwise. So trust me, it works. So you've done that, and that hasn't worked, or you've decided you really do want to jump ship. Start your own agency. And I put the word agency in quotes because I don't mean start an agency like the ones you see around me now. I just mean start anything that gives you agency, that allows you to design the way you want to work, what you want to do, who you want to hire, what you want to be, how you want to make money. Just look around you and think about what you think is missing that should be there, what you think nobody else is doing that you could bring to the table, you know, what you would love to see that nobody else has done, and then do that. Because that's the way that we demonstrate most clearly how we can completely redesign the industry we work in. And when you do that, I want you to be the future of advertising. Because you have the opportunity to seize a massive, massive gap that nobody else in our industry, or in fact, in the tech world, is currently filling. 4 years ago, Facebook bought WhatsApp for the staggering sum of $19 billion. And when that was announced, the founder of WhatsApp, Jan Koum, was extremely keen to reassure people of one thing. You can still count on absolutely no ads interrupting your communication, said Koum after revealing that he was selling the company. That quote is taken from an article in Adweek at the time that was headlined, "WhatsApp and 7 other startups that hated advertising like Facebook." The white male founders of the giant tech platforms that represent the future of our industry bloody hate advertising. David Karp of Tumblr famously stated that he despised advertising, then had to backpedal rapidly when Yahoo bought Tumblr and required Tumblr to monetize itself through advertising and brand partnerships. Sergey and Larry, when they started Google, said, "We will never, ever, ever run advertising on Google." And today, advertising represents 95% of Google's revenue. Last fall, Benedict Evans, who is a partner in one of the most powerful VC firms in Silicon Valley, Andreessen Horowitz, tweeted, "There's something really interesting in the way the tech industry doesn't talk about advertising at all, except for people who actually work in tech teams, and in the way that tech terms for ad formats do not align to advertising industry terms for those formats." And he went on to say, "As an aside, if the only way you can think about a $500 billion industry that shapes how and what we buy and pays for a lot of your favorite media is evil and install a blocker, you maybe ought to be more curious." And he's absolutely right, because the gigantic valuations and the humongous IPOs and the colossal rounds of funding that those tech platforms raise is predicated on one thing only, and that's us. On the presumption there is a colossal revenue to be made out of advertising and brand partnerships. And that's why there is a huge opportunity to rebalance the power equation. Because our industry suffers from shiny new object syndrome. And that's true of agencies and brands alike. Ooh, we should be on Instagram. We should be on Snapchat. We should do something in VR. And what then happens is that agencies and brands go cap in hand to the big platforms and they go, "Please, please, please, Snapchat, Facebook, WhatsApp, please take our money. And you tell us what we're allowed to do on your platform." Here's the problem. When you bloody hate advertising, you have no interest whatsoever in dedicating your tech talent and your resources and even your mind space to creating phenomenal things that will allow brands and agencies to advertise compellingly. And so there's a huge opportunity for us to actually do that and to create solutions that the tech platforms will welcome because they are not coming up with them. It always amazes me that Facebook, with its phenomenal engineering talent, with its colossal resources, with its extraordinary cash flow, still basically offers advertising properties that are fundamentally display ads. The future is not ad units. The future is ad products. And what I mean by advertising products is the future is crafting things of utility and value that surprise and delight consumers in the way they're delivered. This is an entire presentation itself, which I don't have time to give, but I'll give you just one example of what I mean. And I wish I could credit the person who came up with this next soundbite. It wasn't me, but I've searched and I can't find the person whose blog I found this on years ago. But historically, notifications were an irritant. It was really aggravating to get constant reminders. But these days, notifications are not irritants because when you get a notification that somebody liked your Facebook post, that somebody retweeted your tweet, what you are actually getting is little pellets of love. Little affirmations. Somebody likes you. Somebody favorited you. Somebody noticed you. Somebody affirmed you. Now imagine a brand owning little pellets of love. Imagine branding notifications in a way that meant that every time that notification landed, your brand benefited from that hit of love that delights and surprises the consumer. So, I want you to be the future advertising, to fill this enormous gap that neither our industry nor the tech world is. And when you do, I want you to blue sky it. Don't think about what is possible now. Go fantastical. Go sci-fi. Go magical. Ask yourself, what would we love to have happen? Because imagine you'd done this exercise 5 years ago. So, you might have maybe sat down and brainstormed this with your client, and you might have gone, so, I know this sounds like really wild and out there, but, okay, we're gonna go magic, sci-fi, and, in an ideal world, we would love our consumer to be hanging out at home, pottering around, and we would love them to think, ooh, I really fancy some of client's brand product goes here, and to say it out loud, musingly to themselves, yeah, I could really do with some there right now, and an hour later have it turn up at their door. Now, 5 years ago, that would have sounded magical, but today, we have Alexa and Amazon Prime. Blue sky it, because whatever you think, inconceivably, you would love to have happen to be the advertising product of the future, the technology exists now that can actually make that happen. And then, when you do that, I also want you to be Martina Sorrell. So, 5 years ago, my friend Anne Bologna was fired from her position as managing director of the holding company MDC. A big mistake on MDC's part. And Anne and I went out to dinner to discuss what she was going to do next. And I said to her, you've got a phenomenal opportunity. I really, really want you to start the female-founded holding company of the future. Because she had phenomenal experience from having been the MD of MDC for several years, and I said, there is a massive opening for the holding company of the future that is conceived completely differently to the ones dominated by the white men of the present. And I think Anne would have been an absolutely fantastic candidate to start that. And by the way, there are loads of investors who are dying to fund the female-founded holding company of the future. Now, Anne actually was then offered a phenomenal job at TripAdvisor, took that instead. But I want you guys to do this. And I want you to do this because, and this alludes to a theme that you've heard from a number of speakers today, at at the moment, what we see all around us in every industry, ours included, is the syndrome that I call collaborative competition. Collaborative competition is when everybody in a sector competes with everyone else in the sector by doing exactly the same thing everyone in the sector is doing. I believe the future instead is competitive collaboration. Because when all of us in an industry come together and collaborate in a way that we do not see currently, in order to make things better for all of us on the premise of a rising tide floats all boats, that is what then allows each of us off the top of that wave to be uniquely competitive, leveraging our own individual skills and talents. So imagine, as you all start your own agencies, a number of you already have, imagine bringing those together collaboratively into the female-founded holding company of the future, and then all that needs is one of you or several of you to want to be the Martina Sorrell that brings it all together and makes it happen. And when you do that, I want you to be absolutely determined to be as rich as Martin Sorrell. This is the Sunday Times Rich List from this past Sunday. A number of men in our industry have made their way onto this list no woman ever has. I want every single one of you in this room to be determined, starting when you leave this conference, to make an absolute goddamn fucking shit ton of money. Because I want every one of you to say, one day I'm going to be on the Sunday Times Rich List. Because when you set out to do that and you do it, you can then fund other women. You can support other women. You can help other women. You can donate to other women. We need to build our own financial ecosystem because the white male one is not working for us. And we don't get taken seriously until we get taken seriously financially. So guys, this is the goal. And at Creative Equals next year, we're going to measure how far every single one of you is along the path to getting on the Sunday Times Rich List. Action number 5. And again, every single one of you can begin doing this the minute you leave this hall. I want you to reinvent aspirational culture. And I'm going to give you an example of what I mean that I use regularly as a demonstration of how much white male creative directors who hire white male creatives are shooting themselves in the foot. So Pete Favat is the Chief Creative Officer of Deutsch North America. And several years ago, Pete published a very personal, very moving blog post. And it was a post about the fact that his first marriage ran into problems, and he and his wife were divorcing, and he had 2 small children. And Pete is not specific about what the issues were that meant the marriage foundered, but he asked for full custody of the children. And he and his wife went to court, and he says in his blog post that this is what the judge said. With the future of the kids looking very scary, the judge, a woman, deemed me, a man, a moneymaker, a provider. Men are not nurturing beings. Women are. Your job is to make money, Mr. Favat, she said. And she gave his wife full custody of the children. Now, things went from bad to worse. There was some kind of incident. Again, Pete is non-specific, but the police were called. And the police said to Pete, you need to take these children. And Pete said, I can't, my hands are tied. And the police said, okay, we are coming to court with you. We're going to testify. And when they did that, the judge gave Pete full custody. This was a long time ago, and in his blog post, Pete reports that he's now very happily on his second marriage. The children are grown, they're healthy, happy. And he says at the end of his post, I stand for 100% for equality. But my experience and my ask is that we practice true equality. Men can be extremely nurturing people. I have proof. What Pete doesn't realize is that he created his own problem. Because white male creative directors hiring white male creatives perpetuate the stereotype in advertising of the man as the strong, confident breadwinner and the woman as the warm, caring, nurturing homemaker, because those creatives are not the people who live the reality of the impact of the social conditioning that stereotyping drives every single day. I've been saying for years, and I'm so bored with saying this that I now quote myself just to demonstrate I've been saying this for 5 goddamn years. I've been asking to see the aspirational relationship role model of today represented in advertising, which is a partnership of equals. Because today, everywhere in the world, both halves of a couple work. And that's true whether you're a heterosexual couple or any other couple. And because the economy demands it. And that requires completely new forms of negotiation as to who does the childcare, the housework, what happens when the wife earns more than the husband, when the wife has a job and the husband doesn't. And we have the opportunity to make what you do to resolve that aspirational. And when we don't do that, we're also hurting ourselves. And so you have the chance to reinvent popular culture in the work that you do in your creative output, because we can change the world creatively by reflecting the world as it really is and helping and inspiring people to live the best life they can. And then the 6th and final action is, I want you to be our consumers. And I mean this on a number of levels. The first one is the most obvious, because, per what I've just said, I'm not a fan of the word diversity, because it's not about diversity, it's about humanity. It's just about reflecting the world as it really is. And we can only do that when our industry and our agencies and our teams are a reflection of the world as it really is. And we also have the opportunity to solve what is the biggest barrier militating currently against that. As probably a lot of you know, 7 months ago, in the wake of the Harvey Weinstein exposure, I put out a call to our industry in the hope that women and men would finally name names, would finally speak up and name their sexual harassers and go on the record. And I was inundated with emails from all around the world, and actually that avalanche in my inbox last October changed my own thinking. Because I used to say that diversity was the single biggest business issue in our industry. It's not. The single biggest business issue facing our industry today is sexual harassment, because it prevents gender equality, diversity, inclusion from ever happening by keeping out of leadership and power the leaders who would make equality, diversity, and inclusion happen, which is all of you and all of us. And obviously, when we start our own agencies, that is no longer an issue. Because at the moment, to paraphrase a very old quote, Michael Enzi said years ago, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. We are not at the table because we are on the menu. It's precisely because we are harassed, objectified, and kept out of power that we are not in power. And so we have the opportunity to change that for ourselves. And we also have the opportunity to do what our industry has been spectacularly missing out on, which is to genuinely innovate and disrupt. Again, I say this all the time, women challenge the status quo because we are never it. By keeping female leaders out of power, our industry has sabotaged itself because it has robbed itself of the innovation and disruption and the different perspectives and mindsets and creativity that would have completely reinvented the industry for the future and have created a very different scenario to the one we're looking at now. There is a huge amount of money to be made out of taking women and anyone else considered other seriously. Our industry is missing out on that money because it is looking for creativity in all the wrong places. Our industry, and when I use that blanket term, I mean our white male-dominated industry, thinks that only white men can be creative. It is an absolute, total and utter disgrace, both here in the UK and in the US, that our industry is spectacularly missing people of color, and especially black creative talent. It's an absolute goddamn outrage. Every single white male ECD should, for example, be crawling all over black Twitter every single day and seeing the creativity and the talent just expressed there in one social media channel and hiring the fuck out of it immediately. Equally, I am gobsmacked that white male ECDs are not falling over themselves to hire disabled people. People with disabilities are the most creative people you will ever meet because, as Elizabeth Jackson, a disability activist in the US, you can find her at girlwiththepurplecane.com, as she said to me, we have to hack life every single day. I'm astonished that no agency has yet hired Sulaiman Khan. Is Sulaiman still here? Oh, yep. Why has nobody hired Sulaiman? Why has nobody hired his fellow members of Disability Club to be part of your creative department, to contribute to your creative output, when they have to be creative every single bloody day? They have to hack life every single day. They are some of the most creative people you will ever come across. You have the opportunity to put that right. Another extraordinary pool of creativity. Why is every white male creative director not falling over themselves to hire mothers? Mothers have to be 3 times as creative as any of the rest of us every single day. Our entire industry is about creatively persuading people to do things they had no intention of doing. Mothers have to persuade 1 little person, 2 little people, several small people at a time, creatively, psychologically, using every creative tool inside at their disposal to do things they don't want to do. You do not get any more creative than that. Why is everyone not falling over themselves to hire mothers? There are extraordinary pools of creative resource our industry is failing to tap into, and you have the opportunity to do that. You can be our consumers, but you can also, quite literally, be our consumers. So when you think about that agency you want to start, that business you want to start, don't do that usual thing that people tell you to do, which is think about what you really love doing. Take some advice from my friend Natalie Molina-Nino, who started Brava Investments, that invests only in businesses that will make a colossal difference to women, who said, forget passion, find things you want to punch. Seriously, think about what makes you red hot with anger every single day, and address that. And, you will all have many more ideas than I do, but, just think about, for example, the first woman who starts a childcare agency dedicated to childcare for female creatives, with all the different things that necessitates, will clean up. Think about starting a business that closes the gap between Sulaiman and his fellow members of the Disability Club and the Creative Department, which is, we're not set up to be able to hire people like that. My 87-year-old father is in a nursing home, and before he got to the point where he needed to go into one, when he was having trouble getting around our house, Westminster Social Services, courtesy of the NHS, came in and in one afternoon fitted it out with everything he needed to stay mobile and get around and do everything he needed to do every day. Imagine being that business when a creative department says to you, oh no, we're not equipped to take people who have different needs. And to think about setting up a business in today's climate when people absolutely need to demonstrate they're doing everything they can to be diverse and inclusive. So literally, think about the things that make you red hot with anger every single day and start a business to address that. Because the reason we're all here is about deploying, again, the extraordinary amount of creativity in this room to equalize. And when you do that, you make an absolute goddamn fucking shit ton of money. Every company here, you need to sign up to the wonderful Ali Hannan's amazing Creative and Media Equality Standards Index right now, because you need to start measuring yourself against it, and we want to know the results for every single one of you when we meet again next year. But equally, every individual here needs to implement the psychological equivalent of that and to bring your amazing creativity to bear on how we actually get that shit done, how we do stuff, whether it is starting your own business or whether it is within the business you can influence now, or whether it is getting to the leadership to do that. Because what better use do we have for creativity than creating the industry we want to work in, and the future that we all want to live in, and the future that we want every single boy and girl, every single man and woman, and every single other group of anybody and everybody to actually grow up in, to work in, to be fulfilled in, and to be extraordinarily wealthy and to live the life they all want to live in. We can do that as creative equals. We can make everybody creative equals. And I want to see every single one of you leave this hall today and begin doing that the moment you walk outside. Thank you very much.